shortly, starting at 7:30. Just always start the stream a little bit early to share, get it out there to people. Please share, like, subscribe, all of that. We'll be talking to you here soon. Thanks. For everybody just joining here on YouTube, just please hang out. We're going to get started here at 7:30. Always start the stream a little bit early to get it out there to people. So please like, share, subscribe, comment. We're going to have a lot of fun in the chat tonight. We'll be taking questions for our guests. And yeah, it's going to be a really fun time. Hello, free people of the Rocky Mountain region. Hope everybody's doing well out there. Happy Easter to everybody. Michael, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good, Brandon. How about yourself?
Hey, very well. Very well. I had a great Easter. Got to spend some time with my parents, my brother, his girlfriend. It was a lot of fun. Really had a good time. How about yourself?
I did something similar. I was able to go to church, spend some time with my family, got to teach my son how to shoot an airsoft gun and aim down the sights. That was a blast. And yeah, I mean, then we took and while that was going on, my wife hid the Easter eggs, and my son got to get his Easter basket and go Easter egg hunting. So we had a good time.
Oh, that's awesome. Very cool. Very cool. Well, really appreciate you being here on Easter. I know you got the family and appreciate everybody out there watching as well. Hope you had a great Easter. And yeah, we got a lot to cover. We'll try and keep it a little quicker this week, I think, hopefully, but we'll see. There's quite a few bills that you need to be made aware of. Really interesting bills being heard in the legislature. And of course, some great guests tonight to provide some insight and some insider information on what's going on in our state capitol. But yeah, any other news of the week, Michael, before we get started here?
Not that I could think of. We've got a lot of bills to still cover, but so let's get into it.
Yeah, and folks, May 7th. May 7th right now is the date where they're going to adjourn for the legislative session for 2025. So we got 3 weeks left, folks. 3 weeks. So don't give up. Keep the pressure up. There's so many bad bills that still have to go through the process. Now, with some pressure from the public, it might just be expedient for these politicians to just let these bills die on the calendar, let the session expire, and bring them back next year. So keep the pressure up, folks. There's a lot of fight still left. And I really appreciate everybody's efforts this year. It's been phenomenal to see how many people were testifying at the state capitol, all the people reaching out to legislators, and it's really inspiring and it gives me a lot of hope for Colorado.
Absolutely. I'm so excited for our future. I think our future is very bright. Uh, we just need to keep the pressure up on these politicians, and now's the time to organize for 2026. And we all have to really get together, watch out for bad actors, and keep the pressure up.
Yeah, for sure. Well said. Yep, sure. Well said, for sure. And people were going to have a really active chat tonight. So I see Brian Flanagan, Missy Espinoza, Finest City Cycling, Just Jimmy, some good friends in there. So some good Liberty leaders in Colorado. Please join in the chat. Get some conspiracies going to take back our great state. So awesome. What do you think, Michael? Should we jump in?
Let's get into it, Brandon.
Perfect. So I'm going to pull the screen back up here and let's check it out. So there we go. Perfect. So awesome, folks. So here we are. 703 bills introduced this year. Absolute insanity. It's impossible for these legislators to keep track of 703 bills for sure in this 120-day session. I mean, the reality is, folks, these legislators, these politicians are voting on things. They don't even know what they're voting on. I mean, that's literally the reality of it. It is absolutely crazy. It is absolutely insane that they don't even know the ins and outs of some of these bills. And you can get that. Show up to a town hall meeting or just talk to a legislator and ask them about any specific bill. I guarantee you, if you ask them on the spot, unless it's one of their bills or a bill they've been paying attention to, they're gonna have no idea. And they might even have already voted on it. That's they go do what the whip says, what House or Senate leadership tells them to do, and kind of go from there. But definitely a process that is a little out of control, if you ask me. What do you think, Michael?
No, I completely agree. I know nationally, one of the big things people used to talk about was having the ability to read the bills. And that was something that people talked about nationally for a very long time. And we're getting to that point where legislators can't even fully read the bills, fully comprehend what they're voting on, yes or no. And I believe that's a serious problem. I think that's something that we need to seriously take care of within this state. I know that legislators are supposed to be limited to prime sponsoring 5 bills a session, but I don't really think that they're following that rule too well. And as you can tell, 703 bills already introduced. I think that's a serious threat to Colorado, because how can you have proper governance if you're voting on something you don't know, fully understand?
100%, 100%, folks. So let's look at our most urgent bills of the week. So, folks, if you have to leave early, if these are the only takeaways, Take a screenshot right now, share this on social media, but get this out there. These are the two biggest bills of the week. And we got House Concurrent Resolution 251003. This is Representative DeGraff's great bill. We'll talk about it a little bit more in depth later, but it's the person's rights related to their children. So this bill is designed to protect parental rights, to maintain that familial relationship, and to protect kids ultimately. So this bill is being heard tomorrow, Monday, April 21st, in the State Civic, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee at 1:30 p.m. in LSBA. LSBA, that's the Legislative Service Building across 14th. So on the south side of the state capitol, cross over to 14th, and you'll see the old State Museum there. That's LSBA. Huge bill. And then on Tuesday, House Bill 1069, increase stakeholder participation. We'll get into that a little bit about why that's important. But yeah, we'll get into that one here. But so stay tuned for the details there, but take a screenshot. Please get this out there. Two of the biggest bills. If you testify on anything this week, I'd love to see you testify on these ones. Or reach out to the committee members, reach out to your legislator, but get these two bills in front of people. Any thoughts on these, Michael, before we move on?
No, I think that's a great point. If you guys can get down to the Capitol on Monday or Tuesday or just one of these bills, please. Uh, please reach out to your legislators, let them know how, particularly those in these committees, and let them know how they should be voting, and just express your opinion on these things because you never know what might can change their minds, what you might say to that they haven't even fully vetted out. Because as we were talking about, these individuals are voting on too many bills to fully flesh these out um, before before voting on these bills. So there, you never know what you could say to these legislators. So please reach out, email them, and sign up to testify because you never know when or where you might change their minds. And again, if you can't make it to the Capitol, there's still the opportunity to zoom in.
Definitely. So our schedule for tonight, folks, right now at 7:30. So we're going to talk about some of the bills being heard this week. We're going to start with Monday tomorrow and move through the rest of the week. At 8 p.m., our first guest should be joining us, Representative Max Brooks. Now, there is a chance he might not be able to make it because of the Easter holiday, but he said he'll probably be here. So looking forward to talk to him. It'll be his first time on the show. And then 8:30, Lesley Hollywood, gun rights, liberty activist, champion extraordinaire. Definitely got great insider information about the Capitol. Really excited to talk to her. And then 9 p.m., we'll get back to the bills of the week and then wrap up with the important bills of the session. So these are bills that we've been tracking all year long, some of the most important pieces of legislation, laws, policy that are of importance to liberty-minded Coloradans. So we'll give you an update, let you know what passed, what has been killed, and what else is scheduled. Maybe not for this week because we didn't cover it, but in future weeks. And Missy, I see a question in the chat there. You said, did the FFL bill drop off? I'd like to see which bill that is exactly. Not sure off the top of my head which one that is, but let us know. Definitely can look into it. So perfect. How does the schedule sound, Michael?
That sounds great. Let's get into it.
Perfect. So, bills of the week, folks. And like Michael was saying, this is important because this is where you can have a voice. You can show up to these committee hearings, you can look these legislators in the eye. You know, you're sitting 10 feet away from them, tell them the truth about the reality of their policies that they're trying to push on the people of Colorado, support good bills, speak out against bad bills. It's really important. And at the very least, do written testimony, do Zoom, or, you could reach out to the committee members directly through an email or a phone call and urge them to vote one way or the other on these bills. So let's take a look at the bills of the week. So first off, we're talking on Monday. Now, this is a really interesting one. I'm really interested to get people's opinions on this one. Of course, AI is such a huge thing these days. So this is really interesting here. So this is going to be in the Judiciary Committee, the Senate Judiciary Committee, Monday, April 21st at 1:30 p.m. the old Supreme Court. So let's check it out. Senate Bill 288. Have you heard of this one here, folks? Intimate digital depictions, criminal and civil actions concerning preventing certain disclosures of intimate depictions and in connection therewith, creating a cause of action for non-consensual disclosure of an intimate digital depiction and adding and amending related provisions to criminal law. So, folks, if you had an intimate video, I hate to talk about those things on Easter, but an intimate video that was released or leaked online, or people even used AI to simulate an intimate video with your likeness, then you'd have some recourse on this. So, kind of an interesting bill. I wanted to bring this one up because I hadn't really seen it much like it this year. So, the bill creates a cause of action against a person who discloses or threatens to disclose a realistic visual depiction of another individual. depicted individual. It has been created, altered, or produced by generative AI, image editing software, or computer generated means. The intimate digital depiction. A depicted individual who has suffered harm from the non consensual disclosure or threatened disclosure of an intimate digital depiction has a cause of action against the person who disclosed or threatened to disclose the intimate digital depiction of the person. So, very interesting. So, somebody out there makes uses AI to generate I mean, there it is, folks. But yeah, that would be sexually exploited material. Interesting stuff. I'm not sure what the proper role of government is in this point here, but what do you think on this one, Michael?
I think if somebody uses AI, you can make the case that that is a fraudulent to change something, modify, and then expose something about an individual. I think you can make the case that that is actually fraud. But some of this stuff, I mean, you're willingly putting it out there for other people to share, and you have to have the expectation if like you send certain intimate images to another person, you no longer have the really the right to say anything about that picture. So if it gets used against you at another date, I think you can make a case that that's kind of your fault for putting yourself in that situation. But if you're talking about somebody using AI, I think you've got a proper case there. So I think in some ways this has a um, I think there are certain things that are legitimate about this bill, but at the same time, you kind of have to expect to deal with the consequences of your own behavior as well.
Yeah, I
So
mean, you hear. Oh,
go
sorry, go
ahead.
ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, you hear a lot about sextortion, where people get these photos or get this information and, say, hey, we're going to release this out there to the public unless you give me some money. So, interesting stuff. And now with AI, there's so many more possibilities. I think one good thing on this is, though, anything to strengthen the laws against sexual exploitation of a child is probably a good thing.
Hmm.
So interesting stuff, folks. I don't know. Love to see what people think. It's interesting bill from Senator Rodriguez, and there's no other sponsor on here, which is interesting. So interesting bill. Don't know exactly what to think about it, but at least wanted to get it out there to people so that you could get this information because this is something I hadn't heard about. So this bill's being heard tomorrow, Monday, in the Senate Judiciary Committee at 1:30 p.m. in the old Supreme Court. Let's go ahead and move on here. Unless you had any other thoughts on this one, Michael.
Oh no, I mean, I think you could make the case that a lot of the criminal activities that are depicted in this bill are already covered by a lot of uh, other laws that are already on in the criminal code. But I certainly understand where these people are coming from, and I mean, I get the reasons for at least presenting a bill like this.
Yeah, it's interesting. In Fine City Cycling says, isn't this already covered under libel laws? And
Exactly.
Missy says civil cases exist. So good points there. Let's go ahead and move on here. I wanted to bring this one up in the House Finance Committee tomorrow at 1:30 p.m. House Committee Room 112. House Bill 1311, deductions for net sports betting proceeds. So, of course, sports betting was put on into Colorado through a ballot measure. Of course, the legislature was involved in that process, and they want to basically change how the tax deduction is. So currently, and this was a way to kind of jumpstart the industry, I guess, or to get these betting companies going. They had a deduction for any free bets that were placed. So if you gave away free bets to get people to start using your sports betting website, then you were able to actually get those um, a deduction, a tax deduction for all those free bets you gave away. This removes that. I think now that the industry's matured, this is my guess, is that why they're doing this. But I just thought it was interesting. Of course, I hate taxes, hate the idea that there's taxes at all, but that's kind of was one of the selling points of this sports betting is this 10% of proceeds going to go to water, going to go to this, going to go to that. But just interesting because I always want to point out here how the state government and government in general tries to control all of these schemes, tries to do so much through taxes and manipulating the market. It's really not good in a lot of ways where they're saying, hey, well, we're basically going to play pick winners and choosers. We're going to try and put our thumb on the scale to determine who's going to get money, who's not, and we're going to try and control how this system's set up. So you got to think early adopters for sports betting had a massive benefit, right? Because their free bets they gave away where they were able to get a tax deduction for those. Now new companies that are entering the market aren't going to have that same benefit, and a lot of these sports betting companies that have been around for a while have already captured a lot of those customers. So it's interesting stuff. I hate the idea that the government's picking winners and losers and really getting involved that way. But just wanted to bring this up to people. Obviously not a life-changing bill. I know there's some people out there who do a lot of sports betting, but it shouldn't affect you too much. You probably see less free bets because now these sports betting companies aren't going to get their tax deduction for giving away these bets. So, any thoughts on this one, Michael?
No, I think you pretty much summed it up. I think overall it might not be the best for the industry, and considering how everything is with the economy, it seems like the economy is just in a really fragile state right now, and it has been for quite a while, I would say. I know both you and I have talked about it in the past, in different, particularly specific industries. There's a lot of fluctuation and a lot of nervousness. So I don't think this is the right time to introduce a bill like this. I mean, you could make the case that this is something you could possibly introduce when the economy is in a better state than it is. But even besides the pragmatic standpoint, I still don't like this. Uh, I still don't like it because what was approved by the voters was to have this deduction, and it's no longer, and they're trying to pull it away now, just like so many other things that the legislature is trying to do. If you look at for example, Tabor, they want to take away our Tabor rights, and that was voted on via ballot initiative.
Yeah, and this is interesting too, just because it's basically a tax increase. I mean, ultimately, that's what it comes down to, right? Because they did have this deduction for all these bets, but now it's going to disappear. So the state government's going to start collecting another basically $12 million this next fiscal year, and then another $11 million the year after that. And I'm sure it's going to continue from there. So just another cash grab by our state government. Of course, they're quote unquote facing a budget shortfall because they can't stop spending money like crazy. But yeah, that's the reality of it, folks, is they're just going to do everything they can to raise our taxes. And yeah, the little carrot they
Can,
offered to get these sports betting companies operating is now being taken away. Go
can
ahead.
you go back to the fiscal note real quick? Scroll down just a little bit. I want to see the numbers. Yeah, right here. It says state revenue in the out year in 26-27. I'm noticing that they are planning on collecting 10.7 million, but they're going to be transferring 11.8 million. So that looks like it's going to be a deficit of 1.1 million dollars that second year. So I'm kind of curious what they're planning on doing uh, to the state budget. Is that going to come from, is that additional $1.1 million planning to come from the general fund?
So the money goes into the sports betting fund and then they transfer it to the water plan implementation cash fund. That's what the money's for. So it's kind of that year lag where they're going to take basically going to get nearly $12 million this next fiscal year. And then the fiscal year after that, that money is going to go over to that water fund,
I
basically.
see.
So
So they're
yeah.
waiting a full year before they give that money over to the water fund.
Yeah, I think it's just the next fiscal year after that fiscal year ends of tax collection, then they just push that lump sum over there is how I guess it works.
That makes sense.
So interesting stuff. Obviously there's major water issues in Colorado, and they're using sports betting to help pay for some of that. So interesting stuff out there, folks. But yeah, just a tax increase, and always got to be against those, really, no matter what.
Absolutely.
So let's move on here. This is the tax expenditure adjustment, House Bill 1296, also being heard in the House Finance Committee on Monday. Now, basically, it's just another tax increase as well. So, the government giveth, the government can taketh away, right? So the government, these politicians over the years have given all these tax credits to their little special interest buddies, their little nonprofit friends, and all these little people in the private sector that they want to help. So, look at all these different sections of this bill. There's been all these different tax credits, all these different changes to our tax code, and they're basically going to end a lot of these. They're going to repeal a lot of them. They're going to change a lot of them. They're going to continue a few of them. But the idea is that they're just really going to figure out how to get more of our money. So this is a massive bill. It really should only be, it's crazy that they're allowed to get away with this in my mind because Colorado has a single subject rule. So they should only really be able to have one topic considered, but it's a subject. So the subject is tax expenditure adjustment. I guess if you make the subject broad enough, they allow it to happen. And Good point out there. Finest City Cycling, sleaze bags for sponsors, some red flags there for sure. But as you can just see, all these changes in our tax code is just going to mean the state government's going to be collecting more and more and more revenue. So yeah, basically a tax increase that way, and be very interesting to see how this plays out over the years. But yeah, lots of different money moving around, lots of different rebates, lots of different things. But yeah, so they're changing tax credits, they're changing this, they're changing that. So changing the income thresholds for that one. I mean, it's crazy that they can do all of this in one bill. It really should be one bill per, if you ask me. It's a massive change to a lot of our tax code here. But of course, the whole goal is just to take more of our money. Any thoughts on this one, Michael?
No, I think you've pretty much said it all. I mean, as you say, they're using too broad of a bill to do too much in one fell swoop. And I think it's interesting seeing that they can't even calculate on the fourth fiscal year out. They don't even calculate the potential tax Tabor revenue that is planning on going to or being pulled from the Tabor refund um, bucket in general.
Yeah, and here's your business personal property tax income tax credit. So they've business personal property tax has been a topic for a long time, years and years and years, because they're trying to help and support business owners here in Colorado. So that's why this tax credit exists. But of course, they want to repeal that. The bill repeals the business personal property tax income tax credit beginning in tax year 26. Now, I don't like tax credits. Don't get me wrong. I don't like the idea because it's a wealth redistribution scheme where they're taking money from somebody and giving it to somebody else. But nonetheless, folks, look at all these different tax credits they're messing with. Just interesting, and it's something people need to remember that when the government's giving you something, they can take it away whenever they want to. So yeah, just a way for them to rake in more money, and I'm sure that's been a huge goal of theirs this legislative session. I'm sure we're going to see that to continue. And of course, as Finance City Cycling mentioned, some of the worst legislators we've seen are the prime sponsors. So anytime you see Garcia, Zoke, and Weissman all together, yeah, it's a bad time for sure. It's a bad time for liberty.
Absolutely.
Perfect. So let's move on. Also in the same committee, the House Finance Committee tomorrow, this health insurance affordability enterprise update. We hate enterprises, folks. Enterprises are a way for them to skirt Tabor to collect fees in lieu of taxes without voter approval. Total scam. So one of the newer scams here is House Bill 1297. Of course, some other sponsors like they, them, Kyle Brown, Gilchrist, and who's mostly unknown, and Jode, who's was an appointee, of course, this year from moving from the House to the Senate. Let's go ahead and take a look at the fiscal note, folks. Some of this stuff can be so confusing. And of course, yep, more fees, more fees, Missy in the chat says. So you can see, folks, look at this state revenue, 67 million, state expenditure, 67 million. So the bill raises the fee cap and changes the funding allocation of the health insurance affordability enterprise. So back in 2020, they created the Health Insurance Affordability Enterprise in DORA. The enterprise assesses a fee on health insurance carriers, which is currently capped at 1.15% of premiums for nonprofit carriers and 2.1% for for-profit carriers. So folks, part of the reason your health insurance is so expensive, there's a 2% increase on it because of the freaking legislators here. Pardon my French. As shown in Table 2, funds are allocated to several initiatives to reduce individual insurance market premiums. So, of course, they only give it to specific people. They want to take money from everybody and then redistribute it how they want. That's the whole idea with a lot of their schemes, of course. It's wrong. But check this out. Starting in fiscal year 26-27, the bill increases the carrier fee cap by up to 1% and changes the funding allocations as shown in Table 2. This increase is conditional on federal action to reduce or eliminate enhanced subsidies under the Federal Affordable Care Act, which has already occurred. Additionally, the bill requires the enterprise to produce a report and conduct stakeholding and allows the enterprise to accept gifts, grants, and donations. So they're just going to change this little enterprise around, and of course, another 1% increase on everybody's health insurance in Colorado, basically. So it's a lot of money there, folks. They're going to get a $67 million pulling out of out of the economy here, out of the private sector. $67 million. Coloradans are going to be paying more in health insurance in one per year. So craziness. What do you think, Michael?
Oh, simply put, if a enterprise was going to be something that was good for the free market would have already done it. These insurance companies would have already done it. But what you're going to see is you go to one of these little committee hearings, and you're going to see the lobbyists for the insurance companies say, "Oh, we support this bill. We support this bill." Why? Because because they are basically held essentially at gunpoint by the state legislature because they're going to harm your insurance companies even more. If they wanted to really do something that would help people out, they would introduce laws to let hospitals show you how much money each individual procedure costs. They would allow you to do things like buy out of state health care. But the healthcare industry is so regulated that it becomes more and more expensive for the people. And this is only going to cripple families even more because it's going to be harder for people to buy health insurance. And then that's going to cause more and more people to be less healthy because they can't get the proper care that they actually need. They're going to delay procedures, and then the problems are going to become even worse, sometimes exponentially worse, to the point where it could be even lethal, like if it's cancer. And they wait and wait and wait, and then it gets to the point beyond no return, and they just suffer until they end up dying of the disease or the treatment itself.
Yeah, great points there. Couldn't agree with you more. And it's like they put more people into poverty by taxing us more and taking money out of our fees and increasing costs, which just puts more people on their like welfare programs and more people in these social benefit programs, which just exacerbates the problem. So it's like they just keep making things worse. I just thought that this was really interesting. Now they're having this new thing called emerging initiatives. So that looks like a new program. All these other programs have been existing under current law, but now there's one called emerging initiatives. So I'd say it's probably something to do with illegal aliens, but of course that's already they're already giving money to them. So I'm not sure what the emerging initiatives, um, and they have a description here in the bill for people interested. I was just seeing if there's something. So yeah, including new and emerging health insurance affordability initiatives. So whatever that means, of course, who knows? Maybe that's going to mean they're going to give some of this money to their nonprofit buddies, or maybe Lorena Garcia's nonprofit or something like that. Don't be surprised.
Exactly.
So crazy bill there, folks. That's what we got in the House Finance Committee. Any other thoughts on any of those bills, Michael, before we move on?
If you can get down there, there's some pretty terrible bills in this, especially 1296 and 1297. If you guys can get down there, uh, please testify.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting too, how much they just increase the costs of they're doing car insurance we talked about. Now they're doing health insurance and just raising those fees up there, just increasing the costs on everybody. Just to keep going to the well and eventually the well runs dry. But definitely one of the best bills we've seen, a great bill here. Really encourage people to show up for this one. This is one of our urgent alerts for the week. House Concurrent Resolution 25-1003 being heard Monday, April 21st in the House State, Civic, and Military Veterans Affairs Committee, LSBA, at 1:30 p.m. Representative Ken DeGraff, of course, one of our freedom fighters down there, one of the really the most liberty minded legislator in my mind. Just listen to his floor speeches, listen to his committee hearings, and look at the bills he's sponsoring. We got some great ones down there, folks, but DeGraff is pretty consistent down there. So this one here, so every time you see HCR, that's a concurrent resolutions, that means they're submitting it to the registered electors, which is the voters of the state of Colorado. So this is an amendment to the Colorado Constitution concerning a person's inalienable rights related to their children. Now, folks, we know this isn't going anywhere. I hate to burst the bubble. It's still important to show up. It's still important to speak out because these legislators have to know that people care about parental rights, that they care about protecting kids, and we have to show up. We have to be a force. Just like when you see any of these crazy left-wing authoritarian bills and they have all their little lackeys down there, it's a power move. It's showing that there's people paying attention. It's showing that this is important to a certain segment of the population, and the people who are pro-liberty need to do the same thing. So check this out. The concurrent resolution submits a constitutional amendment to the voters of the state of the state at the 2026 general election that will, if approved, add to the non-exclusive list of inalienable rights of all persons the right to direct the upbringing, education, and care of their children. Wow, that is awesome. And look at this. He's got pretty much all the Republicans in the House. I don't know if that's all 22, probably. Um, but nonetheless, how great is that? Seeing all that. Unfortunately, nobody in the Senate. I would love to see the Senators get on this one, but a great
All
bill
tw
here. Yeah,
all
go for it.
22.
Nice. So, all persons have certain natural, essential, and inalienable rights, among which may be reckoned the right of enjoying and defending their lives and liberties, of acquiring, possessing, and protecting property, of directing the upbringing, education, and care of their children, and of seeking and obtaining their safety and happiness. So, I mean, that's great. I mean, how can people do that? So, basically, when you see bold, that means a change to existing law. So the current lowercase words there, folks, in Section 3 here is part of our state constitution. Section 3, Article 2 of our state constitution provides those rights or guarantees those inalienable rights. I guess not provide them. These are God-given rights, of course, but guarantees that the government's going to protect them or not restrict them. So all in caps, it'd add this of directing the upbringing, education, and care of their children. I mean, in a sane world, there's nobody who's against this. You know what I mean? In a free state, in a real place, nobody would be against this. The fact that, as people are pointing out in the comments here, Find Safe Cycling, never forget who will vote for a no on this. Unfortunately, we know those names, we know these people, and they hate the idea that parents can direct the upbringing, education, and care of their children. Absolutely insane. Now, Michael, you're a parent. What do you think about this?
I think this is a phenomenal bill. I really hope that people can get down there. This is I know we saw we have some people fighting. People are angry about like 1312, 1309, for example. I really hope a lot of everybody who's angry at those bills will go out there and just as eagerly fight for this concurrent resolution tomorrow at the Capitol. This is a phenomenal bill. This is one of the best bills introduced of the entire legislature, and as far as I'm concerned, and I shouldn't say bill, but resolution. I'm really I would love to see a miracle happen, and we see a lot of people see the backlash of 1312 and say, "Hey, we actually need to fight for our kids and fight for parental rights and really make a strong effort to um, um, support this bill." And then turn
100%.
around as we saw in the comments. Let me see here. Find a City Cycling says, "Never forget who will vote no on for this one." Absolutely. Whoever votes no needs to be absolutely blasted on social media. So we need to make sure we're paying a ton of attention to the outcome of this bill and absolutely hammer them for the rest of the legislative session, and then keep it going through the campaign season for 2026.
100%. Yes, definitely. This has to be a major issue. I mean, any of these committee members serving in the legislature that are going to vote no on this tomorrow, it needs to be remembered. It needs to be publicized and show up at their town halls. Ask them, why did you vote? Why did you vote against this? Why don't you think that parents should have the inalienable right of directing the upbringing, education, and care of their own children? And just ask them that. I mean, it's absolutely insane. Let's just take a quick look at that committee. Of course, we know some of the people here, but let's jump over to it and go up to the committees. Let me zoom out here. So some of our favorites and least favorite legislators, some of the most authoritarian little tyrants we have. We got Jenny Walford, excuse me, Lisa Farrett, Javier, Che Marbre, Chad, Anger Management Clifford, uh, Michael Carter, Meg Froglips. The list goes on and on, folks. We know who's going to vote against this, but it'll be really interesting to see. I might, you know what, you might even see like a Cecilia Espinoza vote for this. Really, if in a sane world, or some of these people are Nikita Ricks even. But of course, we can count on the Republicans. Some of the favorites down there: Bradley, Bottoms, and Luck. Three of our best fighters going to support this bill wholeheartedly. So if you can show up, folks, I'm sure these pro-liberty legislators will really appreciate it. Speak to their talking points and give them a platform. Go down there and give them a platform to speak. And let's see what we can do to make some noise on this, because parental rights is one of the defining issues right now of our legislative session this year. And anything we can do to really keep that going, I think is really important there, folks. And yeah, any other thoughts on this one, Michael?
I think we've said all we could. I mean, if you can get down there and support this bill, please get down to the Capitol tomorrow. And if you can't, and again, if you can't get down to the Capitol, at least sign up for a Zoom call, because it's very important to sign up to support your parents, support your parental rights, because even if you're not a parent now, there's a good chance statistically you're probably going to be a parent in the future. So support your inalienable right to properly protect your kids.
110%, folks. And yeah, this is a great one. Would really love to see people show up. I'd love to be listening. I'm going to try and listen to the committee hearing, and it'd be great to see some great speeches down there and people really making some noise on this one because, yeah, it's a great contrast to actually speak for a good resolution or a good bill as opposed to all the negative stuff. So, great stuff. Really excited about this one and really hope people can make the effort on this one. So, good stuff for sure. And as you probably noticed, we're at 8 o'clock and our guest hasn't joined us yet. So I'll keep an eye out there. You know, it is Easter, folks. I'm not too surprised if something came up and he couldn't make it. So I wouldn't be shocked at that because previous conversation on Thursday was Sunday may work. And then later conversation said, sure, send the email here. So, you know, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but we will have Lesley Hollywood. She did confirm she'll be joining us at 8:30. We'll keep an eye out. Maybe Representative Max Brooks will join us at some point here. So we'll keep an eye out there. But stay with us, folks. We've got a lot to cover. Maybe we'll get through all these bills before Lesley jumps on there. So
And
great bill, great resolution. Yeah, go for it.
I was just going to say, and I did see Leslie Hollywood promoting her appearance tonight, so she's definitely coming.
100%, 100%. Now, this is another bill here. This is the firearm serial number check request procedure. It's an anti-gun bill on some level. I can see why a lot of moderate Republicans might support it, not really understanding the bigger picture here. So I really wanted to make sure this got in front of people's eyes tonight. Senate Bill 205, firearm serial number check request procedure. So Henriksen, of course, is one of the top targets in the state Senate next year for being replaced. A very, very narrow margin of victory down in Pueblo 4 years ago. Cecilia Espinoza, William Lindstedt. So this is concerning a firearm serial number check and in connection therewith creating a standardized procedure for a federal firearms licensee, so an FFL, to request a firearm serial number check and imposing a penalty under certain circumstances if a licensee does not file a report with law enforcement. So this bill has been amended. That's what all these little italics means. So let's just read through this here. The bill establishes a procedure allowing an FFL to request a firearm serial number check prior to purchasing a firearm from an individual, requires a local county sheriff's office or police department, so now new mandates for them, to complete the serial number check within 72 hours after the request. The bill also allows a federal NFFL to perform a firearm serial number search themselves if the federal government allows an FFL access to the federal government's firearm tracing program. The FFL is still subject to the reporting requirements if the FFL performs the firearm serial number search themselves. The bill imposes a penalty on a licensee if the licensee fails to file a report with law enforcement and the licensee reasonably believes, knows, or should know, or becomes aware that a person sold or attempted to sell a firearm that is stolen, lost, or involved in an open criminal investigation. So, of course, new requirements put on FFLs, new requirements put on our sheriffs and police departments, new requirements all around. And of course, how soon until this is mandatory, right? How soon until this is going to be required? But it's only going to allow them to request it at this point. But you can just see once that framework's in place, folks, anytime you take a firearm for consignment in for sale and they have to run a check on that serial number and then report it and I'm sure get all your information associated with it, folks. So just another way for them to clamp down on our Second Amendment rights and further restrict the ability of an FFL to operate in Colorado. What do you think about this one, Michael?
I, I agree. Your liberty is not taken all at once, but it's taken by a thousand cuts. It's death by a thousand cuts, essentially. As you put it, you said it best. I mean, they're setting up the framework to take that next step with this bill. I mean, and that's exactly how the Democrats do it. That's how they've done it. If you guys haven't read the blueprint, go read the blueprint. That's exactly how they set their frameworks up because they worked with moderate Democrats as well as far left progressive Democrats and gave everybody what they wanted, just in little chunks at a time. And that's why we're in this crazy psychotic mess we're in today.
And of course, local law enforcement agencies are going to be who are doing this may charge a fee to cover their costs. So here's another fee just to purchase a firearm. So yeah, there you go, folks. And then of course this whole idea of if they reasonably believe, know, or should know, or becomes aware that this firearm was stolen or lost, all these people joking about losing their guns in a boating accident over the last few years. And now we have illegal requirements for reporting lost and stolen guns in Colorado. That was a bill we just got in the last couple of years here. So, you can see them just clamping down on firearm ownership overall. I mean, of course, there's going to be requirements and fees and fines, I'm sure, and all these other problems associated with it once they get this running. But bad
Yeah,
news, folks, for sure.
I
Yeah, go
just don't
for it.
know how they're going to be able to. I really don't understand how they're going to be able to report the serial numbers on their lost and stolen firearms, especially if they're lost in boating accidents, because they're not going to have the serial numbers anymore.
Right, right. So, yeah, this 5-page bill here, folks. Yeah, this whole idea, the procedure for allowing. I mean, all I got to do is change one word, allowing, just put that to requiring an FFL to request a firearm serial number check, right? It's
Yep.
almost surprised they didn't even do that, honestly. So, there you go. Just another way for them to create a gun registry, as Missy's saying in the chat, as some people are saying there. So, bad news, folks. Really bad anti-gun bill. Definitely keep an eye out for that one. That's going to be heard Monday, 1:30 p.m. in the State Civic Military and Veterans Affairs Committee. And hey, if you're down there for Representative DeGraff's bill, make it a twofer. There's a lot going on in that committee hearing tomorrow, but you can, stay one for the other. Moving on to Tuesday. So this is another bill, probably the second most important bill of the week. And actually, a good bill. Really excited about this one, folks. Representative Luck tried to run this bill last year, and they killed it. They PI'd it and postponed it indefinitely, but it's back, and she's got a Democrat sponsor on it, Hamrick, and a Senate sponsor, Baisley. So I'm liking this one a lot, folks. Really excited about it. This is on Tuesday, April 22nd, and Senate Committee Room 352 at 2 p.m. House Bill 1069. It's one I had kind of slipped through the cracks for me, and I apologize, folks, but there's 702 bills. It's hard to keep track of them all. But this is a good one. Really excited to see it. So check this out, folks. Increase stakeholder participation. Starting on July 1st, 2028, the bill creates a process and establishes a public online forum for a member of the General Assembly to publish drafts or titles of the bills that the member is considering introducing during the next legislative session. The bill allows each member to post multiple bill titles, drafts, or a combination of titles and drafts on the online forum and establishes a timeline for a member to publish up to 3 versions of each bill title or draft. The bill also requires each bill title or draft published to include a disclaimer stating that the bill is subject to change, the terms and conditions subject to change, and may or may not be introduced based on the discretion of the prime sponsor. The web page on which the bill titles and drafts are published must be taken down on the day before the first day of the legislative session. Legislative Council staff, this is an amendment here, shall begin to implement the changes necessary to create the public online forum upon passage of the bill so that a member may publish bill titles and drafts by July 1st, 2028. So this is great, folks. This is an idea. So imagine you have like Representative DeGraff's great parental rights bill or a good pro-gun bill. These legislators can kind of like shop that bill out to the public. They can post it online, months before the session starts, get some feedback, revise that bill, get some excitement going, give people like some energy, something to rally behind. And maybe we get some warnings of the bad stuff too, because some of these Democrats are just so bold. But how great is that? That there's more participation from the people, like stakeholders, like voters, because, Michael, we really focus on committee hearings, but oftentimes, unfortunately, by the time it's gone to a committee, these legislators have already talked to all these different stakeholders, all these special interest groups, all these different people from across the state, and the voter is always the last one. The voters and the general public are almost always the last ones to be involved in this process of crafting a bill. You know, it's like we go to these committee hearings and these legislators are like, oh, I've been talking to all these different people for months and all these different industries and all these different organizations about my bill. And yeah, and the public doesn't know anything about it. And it's like all of a sudden it pops up and the public were like, hey, this is crazy. You guys realize what you're doing? And by then it can almost be too late. So this is awesome. What are your thoughts, Michael?
I think it's a phenomenal bill. It's another great bill that is I'm not surprised being introduced by Stephanie Luck. She's one of the best that's in the Colorado legislature, and I'm very happy to see that she's got a Democratic co-prime sponsor for this bill. Uh, so I'm really hoping that one of her ideas actually has the opportunity to make a substantial difference and possibly get passed. I mean, you see, I just wish there was a Democratic co-prime sponsor on the in the Senate side as well.
Yeah, and what's great is let's look at the history of this bill. And I'm a little late to the party here tracking it, but it's already gone through the House. It already passed the House. Now it's just got to go through the Senate. So the odds of this passing are great, and really would love to see this one get through. So, folks, if you can reach out to the committee members on the Senate State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee, tell them to support this bill. They probably don't know much about it, honestly, but if the public starts reaching out, there's almost no harm. It's already passed through the House, and the House is a little bit more extreme, if you can believe that, than the Senate. They're pretty bad. But look at this. It was one vote against it. And who was that? I'm kind of curious now to see who voted against it and who was excused. Any guesses out there, people?
I think
Em-
I saw Sirota.
Emily, little Emily.
I didn't expect that, to be honest. I didn't expect her to be that. I know she's not the most moderate, but I didn't expect her to vote no on this. And if I remember, it looked like Morrow was the excused vote.
Okay, yeah. So this is great. I mean, the odds of this passing, for passing the House basically totally unanimously, and except for one little legislator, is awesome. So really exciting, really good to see this one. Surprised we didn't catch it earlier, but I really like this idea. And how cool is this that 3 months before the session, some of our pro-liberty legislators can kind of get legislation out there. People can start commenting, they can get revisions, we can go through some of these complex issues and build up that excitement. And then people know what we're fighting for. You know what I mean? That's why some of these good bills are so important. We have to give people, people need to know what they're fighting for and what's possible if we had a free state, if we had pro-liberty legislators in the majority down there. So I think it's a good place. And Hugo points out in the chat here, the bill is actually in line with what Thomas Jefferson wanted with an open, transparent legislature, 110%. So good stuff, folks. Any other thoughts on this one?
I'm just excited to see this one possibly pass, and I think I think you make a fantastic point, to be honest. I'm just looking forward to seeing how much more stakeholder participation will improve legislation before the legislative session even begins, and possibly we could see good legislation get quickly uh, p- uh, implemented through the process instead of dying out like we've seen. Just imagine if we had civil asset forfeiture reform um, sitting out there where other people could start stakeholding that process before legislative session began, and we could possibly see a bill like that get through. Especially because you see some of the progressive crazy people like Maubrey say, "Hey, I'm kind of interested in this, but I can't vote on it right now." I'd love to see something happen where we could get a bipartisan movement on civil asset forfeiture reform.
100%. Like, yeah, that's what they were saying when they killed the civil asset forfeiture bill this year. They said, well, we'd love to work on this, but there's no time, right? And now here we are 3 weeks left. So, like, there's no time. So, yeah, starting the process earlier is not a bad thing. They can't do any damage because they're not in session, but they can start the conversation. So, it's a win-win in my mind. So, two great bills this week, folks, for people to testify on Monday and Tuesday. And for people just joining us, we got Lesley Hollywood joining us here at 8:30. So stay tuned for that. But wanted to bring this one up. This is a bill that escaped a lot of people's attention. And Val Leal was super of my home on X, brought this one to my attention, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Sorry if I am. But this is the Senate Education Committee on Wednesday, April 23rd at 1:30 p.m. in Senate Committee Room 357, Senate Bill 284. So check this one out, folks. Seems like a good bill, right? And it's concerning youth service organization engagement on school campuses. Okay, that sounds good. Of course, there's some people out there who have been in the fight for parental rights and stuff that are already getting their alarm bells rang. Concerning allowing nonprofit youth service organizations to present to students on school campuses. Huh. On or before January 1st, 2026, the bill requires each institute charter school, district charter school, and local board of education to adopt and implement a policy that authorizes a youth service organization to present to students on school campus during the school day about the opportunities available for extracurricular programs and enrichment activities through the youth service organization. So now all of a sudden, folks, we have these little gender bending, ideologically driven nonprofit groups coming into your charter school just when you thought your kids were safe by putting them in a charter school. They want to force these little groups, organizations that have some nonprofit a status, but maybe even taxpayer funded, to come in and tell your kid why they need to have radical surgery performed. What do you think, Michael?
No, I think that that's a great call out. This is an extreme. I think the proper word for this bill is pernicious because it looks fantastic, but deep down, this thing is straight up evil. Yeah, you can see. Yeah, it looks nice because there's not even a issue with the fiscal note. There's zero FTEs. There's no $0 change, but the programs that they're going to implement are crazy. One thing that I was really concerned about, and if you follow Jeffco Kids First or you're a Jefferson County resident, is um, they use a word that's very close to what Jeffco Schools implemented, which is trusted adult. Um, and inside the legislation here, it's actually trusted mentor. If you scroll down just a little bit, they want to promote trusted mentors. Um, I think it's on page 2. If you scroll down towards the middle to bottom, or it might be page 3.
Just that they bring up this mental health challenges, social
hmm
isolation, academic. So let's bring in all these nonprofits into the schools, right? For all this
Social
behavioral health crisis. Yeah, go ahead.
social emotional learning. That's another thing that they're trying to support. Yep. So academic and emotional well-being. There's a lot of very concerning hidden language in this, and if you've been paying attention, it's extremely concerning because they're trying to attack the kids. Yeah, exactly. Find a city cycling, red flag, trusted mentor. Very, very, very problematic. And I hate the word problematic. So, we've got to watch out. We've got to cancel this one. Yeah, social emotional well-being. That's the word. Um, yeah. So if you guys can get down to the Capitol, please get down there and try to kill this one as best as you possibly can, because this is just going to exacerbate the problems, particularly in places like Pooter schools and Jeffco schools.
Yep.
Two of the worst school districts in the entire country.
And it's charter schools, folks. They're going after the charter schools because they know that parents who do not like these public schools, these otherwise public schools, pull their kids out and want to send them to a charter. So, so unfortunate, folks. And of course, I have to point out, we have the Senate minority leader on this bill, Paul Lundeen, Senator Lundeen. I don't know that he knows what he's getting into. You would hope that he would vet these bills a little bit better, but the only Republican and a leadership, somebody in the Senate leadership, Paul Lundeen, co-sponsoring this bill. People, if you know Lundeen, if you can reach out to him, if he's your a senator, he represents your community, tell him how bad Senate Bill 284 is. Urge him to pull his name off of this bill because that's just it, folks. That's it too. Sure, the Democrats have enough people in the House and the Senate to pass what they want without a Republican. But as soon as a Republican adds their name to this bill or votes for it, then the media and everybody else out there says it was bipartisan. We had a bipartisan legislation, We had the Senate minority leader on there. We had this, conservative champion, Paula Dean, on this there. So yeah, that's the idea, folks. Is you do not want to see bipartisan support for any of these bills because then the talking points change a little bit. But yeah, it just protects them in their agenda. So bad stuff there. Any other thoughts on this one?
I think that you just made a great point. If you guys can respectfully don't cross the line, but hit up Paul Undine, call his office, send him emails, and really blow him up and let him know he needs to pull his name from this and not to support this legislation, because this is going to be horrible for kids. And this is also another reason to pull your kids out of public schools. And if you can, put them in private schools, or if you need to, homeschool your kids. Homeschool them. There's a lot of organizations. There's umbrella organizations that you can work with that can help you work with your kids to give them the proper education if you need to homeschool them.
Definitely. So let's move on here. We got a few more minutes before our guest joins us here, but let's move on to the Transportation and Energy Committee, Senate Committee, room 352, Wednesday, April 23rd. Two interesting bills. Don't want to spend a lot of time on the key or K vehicles, however you say it, because we've talked about it at length before. It's a great bill. We'd love to see these little Japanese trucks driving around in farms or whatever. So good stuff. But nonetheless, I just want to give people an update. Want to make sure people know, since we talked about it last time, it did pass the House. So that was last week, passed the House on third reading, is now in the Senate. So the Senate has to get it through through a committee or two there, and then to the whole committee, and maybe they amend it, maybe they don't. But time is of the essence here. It'd be great to see at least something on a pro liberty level pass. So that's this Wednesday. You can reach out to the Senate committee members and the senators who are on the Transportation and Energy Committee. But any other thoughts on this one, Michael?
Uh, Not too much more than what I said, but the more types of vehicles, the more choice people have, the better it is for the Colorado economy. And like we talked about before, the Colorado economy is not in a great spot. So this is actually a pro liberty and a um, pro, uh, this is a bill that's great for the economy. So, sorry about that, guys. But
Yeah,
yeah, if you guys
you're
can,
good.
this is another fantastic bill to get your legislators in the transportation committee to vote yes on.
Yeah, 100%. And then there's one more in this committee. We won't spend a lot of time on it, but it's so ridiculous, folks. Increasing transparency impact of fuel products. House Bill 1277, one of the bills that makes Colorado the laughing stock of the country here. So this is, of course, putting a little sticker on the gas pumps. We've talked about it before, so I don't want to go into it. Just want to let you know it's coming up again in committee. So you go to get gas and you're going to see this warning label that says use of this product releases air pollutants and greenhouse gases known by the state of Colorado. Just you think of the known by the state of California you see everywhere to be linked to significant health impacts and global heating, respectively, pursuant to blah, blah, blah. Tampering with this label is a violation of this. Now, folks, I'm sure these labels are going to be tampered with. I don't encourage that, but I just know it's going to happen. People are going to come up with little stickers, maybe, or different things, but absolutely and utterly ridiculous. These gas station people are just going to be put through the ringer, folks. They have to keep these stickers on. If people deface them, if people take them off, they get faded. They got to keep replacing them. There's this additional cost. And of course, the additional concern that the state government's going to attack them if they don't have this sticker on there. So this did pass the House. Would love to see the Senate stop this bill. So this is going to be heard Wednesday in that Senate Transportation and Energy Committee. So yeah, reach out. It's so stupid, so ridiculous. But yeah, this is what your legislators are doing with your taxpayer money, folks, and laughable stuff from Bacon, Joseph, and Cutter. And yeah, we'll see if Polis signs this into law or not, but stupid. So
Th- This
stupid.
this is
Yeah,
why
go
there's
ahead.
703 introduced bills. It's stupid crap like this, stuff that shouldn't even be a bill itself. Yeah, we already know it might not be the greatest for the environment, but we also need to get around. You know, it's also not great for people if they don't have any fuel for their freaking gas tanks in their vehicles so they can go to work. How stupid of a bill and a waste of time and money.
100% well said there, folks. So let's take a look here. Go over to Thursday. Now, we did talk about this previously, but just wanted to mention it because it's back up here. House Bill 1266 to create the Colorado American Indian Recognition Day. Love it. We definitely great. Give everybody a day. Why not? Give everybody a million days. Let's all use all 365 days and put something on it. Of course, a total waste of time, total wasted efforts from these ridiculous legislators. They're not serious people, except the fact that they control our tax money and can sick the police on us. But of course, just if you hadn't seen it, this bill establishes the second Monday in October as the Colorado American Indian Recognition Day, an observed state holiday. And Michael, what did the second Monday in October used to be?
I believe that was Columbus Day.
100%. So, of course, they already got rid of Columbus Day a couple years ago, and now they got to say, well, now we got to make it this day and we got to make it that day. And absolutely ridiculous, folks. But yeah, so there you go. Just wanted to point it out. This is still going on. It's made it all the way through the House. Now it's getting into the Senate. So yeah, I mean the senators there should just be embarrassed and should just kill this bill. Which senator is even sponsoring this? It's Jesse Danielson. Oh gosh, she's terrible.
Of course,
So
Lolo's a part of it too.
hey, real quick before Lesley joins, let's talk about the last one of the last bills of the week. House Bill 1250, the gun violence prevention of parents and students. So just when you thought it was safe to send your kids to school, not only are they going to have nonprofit weirdos showing up to tell them how they're in the wrong body, but now they're going to have gun anti-gun propaganda at taxpayer expense given to parents and students. This is going to be a Thursday in the Health and Human Services Committee in the old Supreme Court at 1:30 p.m. So they got to provide materials about gun violence prevention to parents. If your kids are in school, they're going to send home information to you, just like the freaking sticker on your gas pump. So the bill requires each local education provider to provide the materials in a written or electronic format to students, parents, guardians, and legal custodians at the beginning of each school year, and post the materials or a link to the materials on the local education provider's website. Beginning in January 2026 and in January every year thereafter, the department shall include in its Smart Act hearing information concerning the materials. So yeah, they're just going to tell you how scary and dangerous guns are. That nobody knows what a gun is unless our state legislator comes in and warns you about them. Absolutely no ridiculous. But yeah, of course they're going to have the Office of Gun Violence Prevention, this little money laundering scheme that has given money to Colorado Ceasefire. There's proof that they've given money to Colorado Ceasefire, gun lobbyist group, our taxpayer money to post certain materials. They're going to have a little web page there about how evil guns are and how dangerous they are. And guns are the number one cause of all of society's ills. The list goes on. And that's their goal, folks, is just to continue attacking the issue and just beating us to death with it. So, any thoughts on this one, Michael?
Uh, I mean, I think you've pretty much hit the nail on the head with this one. I mean, this is pretty much going to force anti-gun curriculum into schools, and I think it's a very serious problem. It's anti-gun propaganda taught that's going to be mandated from the state level. I really hope that we can get this is another one that's going to need to get killed if we can possibly kill this bill. I'm very concerned about what this might mean for the future of Colorado if they are able to indoctrinate this garbage to our school children. And one more time, I said it earlier, I'll say it again. Another reason, get your kids out of public schools.
110%. And we're going to go and stop the share right there because we have a guest joining us. We have the great Lesley Hollywood, one of Colorado's liberty leaders, specifically around gun rights and other things. Lesley, how are you tonight?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Doing great. Do you know Michael Vance, Legislative Director of the
I
Libertarian Party of
do.
Colorado?
Yeah. We've joined some live streams together and we've met in person, so
Oh, that's right.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
yeah.
Well, cool. Welcome. Really appreciate you taking some time on Easter Sunday to join us. There's so much going on. We in the last little home stretch here of our legislative session here for 2025. Thankfully, the pain is almost over. But yeah, so you had a recent article recently on your Rally for Your Right, Our Rights website about this new bill that's coming out to give police powers to the Department of Revenue. What do people need to know about that?
Yeah, so this is one that kind of just flew under the radar. Of course, we see that when, like you said, there's 703 bills. A lot of times, the bills like this will just kind of fly under the radar. So this one was actually introduced on March 31st, and the bill number is HB 25-1314. So introduced March 31st, but then it kind of just sat for about 2 weeks. And I think it was last week. Yeah. So just last week, it went to its first committee. All of a sudden, they had it scheduled in committee within 24 hours with less than 24 hours notice, had it in committee, passed committee, it was finance committee, passed the finance committee. Next day they had it on second reading, it passed. Next day they had it on third reading, it passed. So within 3 days, this actually went through the legislative process while also flying under the radar. So what the bill is actually titled, and that's kind of why these can fly under the radar. So this bill is actually titled Peace Officer Status for Certain Department of Revenue Employees. So you would never think that this is a gun bill. And the reason I actually got tipped off to this bill, and the reason why is because there's some people in the state, amazing people who are kind of older and retired, and I swear what they do every single day is they go through all of these bills and they just start reading them, just kind of as a hobby. One of those people who I know happened to tip me off to this right before it went to committee, so I was following it, and then as soon as I was like back ready to figure out what we were doing with it, it had passed the House. So yeah, super, super fast. But yeah, so on, I think it was the 17th, so last week, so about 3 days ago, I put out an article. It's on both the rallyforourrights.com. It's also on wethesecond.com. So this article can be found on the blog on either of these places about what this bill actually did. So this bill does turn DOR employees into peace officers. What they fail to mention in the title of it is that it's actually for their firearms dealer division, which is brand new. That hasn't even, the firearms dealer division hasn't even started to work yet. And so to kind of understand what this bill does, you have to go back to 2024 when we passed the, I think it was HB 1353, which was the bill that established the licensing and permitting. I just call it a state level ATF because that's what it is. So it kind of created, we still have the federal ATF that oversees FFLs, gun stores, federal firearms licensed dealers in Colorado. Federally, ATF hasn't changed, but they just added the state level ATF. And it is actually, as the bill progressed last year, it ended up changing. And because at first it was CBI that was going to be in charge of it. And then they ended up changing it and they put it under the Department of Revenue. And so that's DOR. So that's like, usually you'd think your licensing division, your licensing taxing division. What I actually learned is that DOR does, they kind of have these different industries that they also kind of do oversight for. The auto dealers industry, marijuana, alcohol, tobacco, gambling, things like that, kind of these more of these sins, not that cars are a sin, but you know what I mean. So they, of course, decided to tuck the firearms right up there next to marijuana and tobacco and alcohol, as if this has to be highly regulated. And in doing that, so they put DOR in charge of it. Okay, fine, that happened last year. It hasn't even started yet. It actually won't even begin until July 1st of this year. The oversight won't. Now they have already run this bill, the one that's 1314 that we're talking about, running this bill to amend last year's bill to build on top of that when that has not even gone into effect yet. So in doing this, what they're doing is they're pretty much anyone from DOR that would have any contact with FFLs will be given police powers. Some of them actually being required to become post-certified and everything. It's pretty wild.
With this bill becoming, first off, thanks for coming on, Lesley. Good to see you again. With this bill becoming uh, amended from last year, requiring requiring the legislator to come up with another bill. How big of a mess is this for the state of Colorado? Are we going to have to see more bills introduced even next legislative session just to properly enact what was put in place 2 years, what will be at that point 2 years before?
I think we will. I think that they at this point don't even know what this new licensing permitting there. I mean, again, I just call it the Colorado, the state level ATF, because that's what it is. They at this point don't even know what that's going to look like implemented. So I'm sure they're going to discover kind of their little consequences, to their actions, which always happen, unintended consequences, and we're going to see them come back again to alter the state licensing. I think that's going to morph forever. This DOR part of it, giving the police powers to the Department of Revenue, I think is really, it's really concerning. And so one of the things I kind of, I'm a deep researcher. So when I learn about something, I want to learn everything about it before I try to educate others about it. So I really did that on this. So one of the things that's interesting about DOR is that currently there are a few agents, and of course they're agents of the state if we want to term them properly. So there's a few agents of the state that already have these police powers, but they're criminal investigators. So like, for example, if you look at, I think it's the alcohol division and the marijuana division, they have given police powers specifically to their criminal investigators. What they're doing with the FFLs is they're giving police powers to everyone, to the deputies, the directors, the deputy directors, to what they call their agents in charge, to all of these lower level, anyone that's going to be associating with the FFLs. The other thing is too, is that only a couple industries have even that criminal investigator police powers level of scrutiny, where with the FFLs, we haven't even seen this implemented yet, and they're just going to go ahead and they're just going to light it up. Like, I mean, if you think about this, next to all these other industries that they oversee, they're all kind of the lights are turned off. Yeah, they've got, pencil pushers and bureaucrats that are in there making sure things are done right. But this one, they're lighting up. They are making sure that they have police that can come in and they can do some crazy stuff. The other thing is, too, is that the crimes that they're going to be allowed to enforce arrest for don't even have to be firearm related. So they could go in there and they could say, I think this is forgery, or I think you stayed open past curfew, or whatever it is that they decide. And so they actually can enforce all these other laws. The only other industry that's mentioned in this bill is actually the auto dealers industry. And the auto dealers industry, because of car theft, has kind of been slowly creeping up to add more and more police powers to it. I don't think any of DOR should have police powers. I think that should 100% be pencil pushers. So this was kind of surprising to even learn. But I kind of understand with the car theft situation that we have here in Colorado, that having a little bit more authority over that might be desired because they already have a track record. They don't have that track record with the FFLs. FFLs are primarily just very small mom and pop shops, very simple people who are just trying to make a living, providing the means of self-protection to American citizens and being passionate about what they want to do. So how they think they're going to need this is unbelievable. But
That's crazy.
there was, and I think I told you about this, Brandon. So one of the things that happened after I released this article on the 17th, so this was kind of interesting. And I think to me, it's positive. It's always nice to have some positive things happen. So I released this article. I write a lot. People may have read some of the stuff I've written over the years or just recently. I kind of consider writing my journaling. It makes me just feel better about these frustrating situations. So this one, when I picked up on it, I wrote this article and it actually went viral within 24 hours. It just started I mean, it went fast. Just everybody it was a very alarming story. Well, it ended up in front of the Senate sponsor of this bill, Senator Dylan Roberts, who's up from Steamboat Springs, Routt County. And Dylan Roberts has always been kind of moderate on guns. This year, he's tended to move a little bit to the left for sure, as he did support like SB3 and things like that. But I've known Dylan Roberts for years. I've testified in front of him in both the Senate and when he was in the House. We have a good working relationship. I actually ended up hearing from him. He contacted me and told me that he is now pulling his name off this bill as a bill sponsor. And that will reflect on the website on Monday. He told me that he did not realize it included the FFLs and that when it was initially put in front of him, it was only the auto industry. And his email was interesting because it definitely, to me, kind of indicated that they're starting to worry, right? Like the fact that he seemed genuinely concerned about the fact that I knew about this bill and that I was getting this information out and that this was going to get back to him and back to his constituents. And he wanted to make sure that I knew he was pulling his name off of it. Kind of makes me wonder if there is more worry happening within the Democrat Party at the Capitol right now. Just kind of his tone on that. But it's interesting that he's pulling his name off of it. He is right now the only Senate sponsor. We'll see tomorrow whether or not, and he just traded with another sponsor, or do they even have bills left to sponsor at this point? So we're getting so late in the session. If somebody else doesn't jump on and take his place, the bill will stall. We'll see if it's a priority in the Senate. Definitely going to be interesting to see what happens tomorrow with this bill.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing this one to light. It's absolutely crazy. And I can't help but think about this idea with Senate Bill 3, of course, and don't get me wrong, do not comply has been a rallying cry of the 2A community here in Colorado since, 2013. And even before that, I'm sure, with all the gun control we've seen in the past few decades. But, what are they going to do then? So say, your local sheriff maybe doesn't want to enforce this law, even if they set up the whole scheme to get the licensing and this and that, but maybe they're just not going to turn an eye, if a gun FFL is able to flirt or, flout the law just a little bit or skirt by a little bit, or who knows, right? Just kind of with the magazine ban. But because we do see that now, of course, right? That was one of the justifications behind Senate Bill 3 is that the magazine ban is not being enforced by local communities across Colorado because, the police department, sheriffs, they have better things to do. A lot of people do believe it's unconstitutional. A lot of these law enforcement people are pro gun themselves. So they're not going to go harass these gun stores. Maybe they know these people at these stores and tell them, hey, you're going to get hauled off to jail or fined or whatever for having too big of a magazine for sale. So what are they going to do? This is their workaround, right? They create a system in which the state government has their own little anti-gun Gestapo going around to all these gun stores, doing their investigation, doing their schemes. Of course, that was part of the idea last year's bill, but this giving them police powers adds a whole nother level to it because you could have, armed Department of Revenue employees show up to these gun stores and say, "Hey, you're violating Colorado state law with the magazine ban, with Senate Bill 3, with whatever it is out there." So, because I see this online a lot, people say, "Oh, you got it, don't comply, don't comply, don't comply." It's like, well, what are these people going to do? You know what I mean? Because they're going to have state level enforcers coming in, and I can't help but think about the Untouchables, that movie, and the TV show, of course, with the movie with Kevin Costner and going after Al Capone, and they worked for the revenue people because that's how they got these gangsters is because of tax evasion and they weren't paying revenue on the alcohol they were illegally making and smuggling all this and that. So it's like history repeats itself. It's just absolutely crazy. But how do you think this is going to play out, Lesley, in terms of enforcement of the magazine ban, for example?
So, I think that definitely, without a doubt, you're 100% right there. This is why they wanted the state level permitting. This is why they wanted a state level ATF, because the federal ATF can come in, but they don't really enforce state laws, right? So, I mean, the ATF's job is to enforce federal laws, not state laws. And that's why the magazine thing has been able to fly under the radar. This now, we've got a Colorado ATF that's has totally different rules. And so they, without a doubt, are the ones who are going to be coming in there. And it's going to be these armed agents of the state that now have police powers from the Department of Revenue that will be coming in there and enforcing this new, they're the new ATF. The DOR is the new ATF. We could just put it that way, right? When we talk about armed agents of the state, that enforce firearm laws, where do we see that? ATF. And that's literally what we have right here. That's what they have done. And so how is that going to play out? I think without a doubt we're going to start seeing gun stores, anybody that does sell magazines over 15 rounds, they're going to stop selling them. And because the issue is that if they now have these agents of the state that can not only arrest them, but they can shut their whole business down. I mean, this is not going to be some simple thing. The sheriffs don't matter because the sheriffs aren't part of this. And I actually do have a little bit of a jurisdictional question about this bill, giving, basically turning the DOR into the little ATF. Where's the jurisdiction with our state, or with our county sheriffs? I'm not sure how jurisdiction plays out on that. That's something that I've kind of questioned myself, haven't looked into. I will tell you for sure that when this did go to committee in the House, this bill, there was no law enforcement there. I don't think they even know this is going on, which doesn't surprise me because the law enforcement has been in the dark on every bill that affects them this year. So I would not be surprised if this one they also don't know about, and I need to reach out to actually my sheriff and kind of chat and make sure that they are aware of this moving into the Senate. It went so fast through the House. So I do think that we're going to see kind of this little ATF is going to become the enforcers of these FFLs. But one of the things that I do question, looking at like SB3, and people say, will the sheriffs comply? So I have a question about that, kind of beyond the actual sale of the firearms. Because the other thing that the SB3 bans is actually the manufacture. So right now, and that includes for private citizens. So right now, say, there are a lot of people in the firearms community, I know a lot of them, that just build their own guns. They buy serialized lowers. They go through their FFLs to make sure they get their background checks. This is a really common thing. I'm not talking ghost guns. I'm just talking people who build their own guns. That's now going to be illegal. So although we do think Lowers will continue to be legal because they are not semi-automatic yet. I do think that lowers will still be legal, and obviously you can buy all the parts for to go with your lower to make an AR-15 that would be one of these banned firearms. That manufacture of that is now illegal, right? So right now, today, it's legal. Tomorrow, it's going to be, not tomorrow, but metaphorically, tomorrow, that's going to be illegal. Will my sheriff go after me for that? That's a question that I have, and that's a question I almost don't want to ask him because I don't want to put them on record. I would like them to just say we'll turn a blind eye to private manufacturing. But will they? So I think that's a question that's going to come into play. There's been kind of some people that are like, oh, all you have to do is get all the parts together, go up to Wyoming, get an Airbnb, have a gun making weekend, come back down, boom, you manufactured that gun in Wyoming. And that's true. And how would the enforcement of something like that look like? How would that take place? The one thing I do think that could potentially happen would be looking at the serial number on the lowers. Was that serialized prior or after the date this went into law? So there's a lot of questions around the manufacturer piece of it for me, because even the manufacturer remains illegal even if you have this card. So manufacturer is just illegal, period. And which really wasn't talked a lot about when the bill was going through because there was so much to talk about. So even if you go and you get your fancy little card from go from CPW, you still cannot make your own guns.
I don't understand how they can outright ban the manufacturing of all AR-15s, for example, because let's say, for example, you have an existing lower, you have to buy a new lower, and you put it on because your old lower broke for whatever reason. You have an old existing gun. Is that going to be considered a manufacturing of a brand new gun? Or you have an individual part that you have to replace on an existing gun. Is that going to be considered manufacturing of a brand new gun? I mean, how do they define the definition for manufacture of a new gun at that point?
Yeah. Well,
And
and that's a really good question. And you bring up the point that I have about, with when was that lower serialized? And then, to me it's like, okay, well it could lead to, okay, this was purchased through this FFL as and when you look at serial numbers, and so like this is something I did a lot of research back when the ghost gun ban was going through here in Colorado. It started in Denver, started hitting some other cities, then it hit the state legislature. And I actually wrote this article that it was actually a really, really kind of a neat article. And it was called Serial Numbers Don't Stop Crime in Defense of Ghost Guns. And I did a lot of research about what actually happens with a serial number, because they don't stop crime, first of all, and we don't have a registry. So what actually happens with that serial number? And so that was a really kind of an interesting kind of walk I went through, because I talked to a lot of FFLs. I went into gun stores and I would actually have the owners like walk me through, if I buy this gun, walk me through the serial number. Let's not talk about anything else. Walk me through what happens to the serial number for life. And the truth is that when the gun's manufactured, they put the serial number on it. They record that serial number. They then sell it to a gun store, an FFL. Say it's kind of a private. We do have a lot of like custom gun makers in Colorado. That's pretty common. They're getting put out of business seriously bad right now, for sure. But they then document who I sold this gun to, and they actually keep that paperwork that says what that serial number is and what store that was sold to. The manufacturers do, right? So say, for example, there's a crime that's committed and they find a gun, they take the serial number, and then, if it was a serious enough crime, I don't think they actually really do a lot with serial numbers in kind of smaller crimes, but if it's a serious enough crime, they will actually contact the manufacturer of that firearm, say it's a Glock, and they say, we have this serial number, tell us where you sold this gun to. And they will say, I sold that to mom and pop gun store in Fort Collins, Colorado. And so then the police can then go to contact the gun store in Fort Collins and say, who did you sell this gun to? And they do have to, these FFLs do have to maintain that information on paper only. It can't be digital because we can't have a registry. So it has to be on paper and it has to be on site. And they do maintain those records so that they could then go back and track down that serial number and tell them who that gun was sold to. Now, what happens to it from there is really never tracked. So if I have that gun and I give it to my daughter, because that's legal, no background check, I give it to my daughter. She moves to Georgia. No background checks at all required there. She sells it to someone. So really, once you're beyond that point of buying it at the gun store, that serial number is never tracked again. So I've always found that kind of interesting when we get these conversations about serial numbers, is to think about what they actually do and what they actually mean. And so when we're looking at SB3 and this manufacturing thing, so what's going to happen? Like, say you get a lower from Palmetto Armory, and that lower then is going to have a serial number on it. And then that's you transferred that through somebody local. Do they have the paperwork? What happens to that lower paperwork? Because ultimately that's what it would take to eventually track that gun back to you, or to take that serial number and go back. They would have to actually want to go after you so hard that they're going to trace that serial number back to wherever you bought it, to check and see if it was before or after SB3 was enacted. So when I talk about all that, of course, I'm just like thinking about the whole, we will not comply. Will our sheriffs, be constitutional sheriffs? There is obviously the piece that is the gun stores, where the sheriffs no longer have the authority over the gun stores with what they're doing with DOR and the little Colorado ATF, but they do have authority over us as citizens, over the things like the manufacturing.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, such a dystopian picture, I hate to depress people out there, but that's the reality of it. And I really appreciate your efforts to get this out there to people. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like, okay, how many lowers can I buy between, between now and August of 2026, right? And then at least there's a record that I bought them pre-ban, I guess, and then can do whatever. They have no proof that I built the gun before or after that, you know what I mean, at that point. So if you buy the lowers for $40, $50, whatever, probably even cheaper out there, then that's one thing people could do now, in my mind at least, go through an FFL and have lowers shipped out to them. But Lesley, ultimately, I just can't help but just think the urgency for people to get involved, for people to speak up, to show up, and really get involved with the elections. Because
Mhm.
the only way we're going to stop this, the only way we're going to turn this ship around, is we got to change the people serving in the legislature, the governor's office, wherever, right? I mean, that's ultimately what it's going to take, because they're just going to keep going. They're just going to keep pushing, pushing, pushing. We saw how bad this year was. Well, I guarantee you next year is going to be bad also. And they're just going to keep moving. Ultimately, the only thing that's going to change things, aside from some Supreme Court intervention or federal or whatever that looks like, is the voters, is the people here in Colorado standing up and getting these people out of office. So what do you have to say on that topic, generally speaking? What can people do? What should people be looking at? It seems like we're a long ways off from 2026, but I'm really hoping people start getting active now, start getting some plans, start getting organized, you know, what do you say to people now about what they can do to help get these bad legislators out of office?
So I think I totally agree with you that I think the only way anything changes down there, and it is brutal, and next year is going to be so brutal again. I actually think we may see them introduce a bill that's going to amend SB3, just like we just saw with them introducing a bill that's amending the little ATF right now. That hasn't even been implemented, right? So like they could literally next session be like, you know what, we're going to go ahead and run this other bill that's going to add handguns and blah blah blah. People need to watch out for that, because I see that coming down the pike for sure. When it comes to getting involved, your elections, the elections in 2026 are going to be so important. And one of the things that I think could be kind of tough for us here in Colorado is going to be kind of that Trump effect, because because we do have a lot of unaffiliateds who tend to not like Trump, even if they sit kind of right of center. And they tend to, when they do that, they either don't vote or they down ballot just vote blue, right? Like they're gonna just maybe they hate what's happening in the legislature, but they hate Trump more, so they just don't even they're voting blue all the way. That's going to be kind of a complicating factor, I think, and I would hate to see us lose even more Republican seats. We did see that happen after Trump was elected the last time. I think it was 2018. All of a sudden, it was like a bloodbath. And I think it's going to be very important for us to make sure that we talk to the people that we know that care about these issues and we let them know, especially as we get closer to the election, like this isn't about Trump. This isn't about Republicans and Democrats. This is about bringing balance to the legislature, and we have to vote for Republicans to make that happen. The other thing is that this last election, I ran an IEC, an Independent Expenditure Committee called Balancing the Rockies, and we did a lot of really, really good work through that. And one of the things that really kind of came to light when I was doing that was actually that we really need to focus on getting Republicans out to vote, libertarians out to vote. When you look at the voter turnout of those specific, the different parties, on the Democrats, like they've got excellent voter turnout. Republicans don't, but we always, like, even with our IEC we ran, we always are kind of targeting this middle, right? So maybe we need to really just make sure, are the people who agree with us, are the hunters, are these kind of more, these more like loner, gun owners that we know, because there's some of them that kind of just tend to be like apolitical. We have to make sure we're getting them to vote, because it really won't take a lot of work to actually flip some seats, and it might be easier to target that side and get, like, why do we have hunters that don't vote? So maybe if we really put our effort into trying to get those people voting, encourage our friends, encourage family, and don't turn it into a Republican and Democrat thing. If they don't like Trump, it doesn't matter. This is a midterm. Like, it doesn't matter if they like the president or not. They can dislike Trump because he's not on the ballot. That they need to make sure that they understand that we have to bring balance back to the legislature to put a pause to any of this radical legislation that we're seeing, or even to slow it down. It is so bad.
Lesley, I'm really glad that you brought up the lack of Republican participation. The last 20 years have been an absolute bloodshed for the Republicans. You read the blueprint, you see exactly why, and the Republicans just have not been able to get out of that hole. There's a loser mentality that's really kind of set in. So my question to you is how do we get that quote unquote black pill, that old, we're never going to win, we can't win, kind of loser mentality out of the Republicans, so that way we can really see some real changes, see some inspiration, see what instead of a black pill, what we might see as a white pill, so people actually feel inspired to do something in Colorado. Because right now, I mean, we're not seeing it. We're still seeing people whining, complaining, and moaning, and then we see more and more infighting, and nothing actually changes. So I guess my question to you is, what can we do to really inspire people that are basically not to the left of Mao to get out the vote and start fighting for Colorado's rights?
So I think one of the things that a lot of people kind of have this wrong mentality of is that their vote doesn't count. There's definitely concern that, that elections get stolen, voter fraud, all of this stuff. And there's just kind of this overreaching mentality of like, my vote doesn't count. A lot of apathy I see in the Republican Party anymore. I think there's a lot of younger Republican voters who don't get targeted when it comes to campaigning. And I think we actually kind of have a younger generation in general who has kind of started to reject the left and the right pretty solidly. And so it's a matter of making them understand that I tell them, you can undervote. Like, you can go through your ballot and you can mark it for your state house rep and your state senator and nothing else, and you can return it. Like, and I don't blame people, especially younger ones, who feel like their lives are just kind of being screwed from every which way, which they are in a lot of ways. um I'm not going to sit there and I'm not going to try to convince them that Republicans or Democrats are out there and have their back because they don't, and that would just be a lie. I understand that they take their vote seriously and they want to market for people they can believe in, but there is like kind of a big myth that you can't leave anything blank on your ballot or it won't count. I always make a big effort to let people know it's not true every election. The other thing is that I think that we can look at some really close races that we have just every election, but especially this last election, and how close those races were. So, for example, down in Colorado Springs, Representative Kelty, she won her race by 3 votes. 3 votes, and that was after curing ballots. That was after a recount. 3 votes made that happen. And she is doing excellent work down at the Capitol this year. I absolutely love her. We could have Stephanie Vigil instead, but we don't. And it was those 3 votes that made that happen. And so I think sometimes those positive messages can be what will make people say, okay, fine, I'll get my ballot in. And of course, we're talking about down the road that we really kind of start having those conversations, but we can use stories like that. No, people don't really know that how close that was. We can use stories like that to motivate people to get their neighbors and their friends and their family out to vote and start talking to these hunters. The hunting community has been a very difficult one, even this year with SB3. It's been hard to really get in there and make them and have them take things seriously because I can tell you they did not take SB3 seriously at first. That hunting community was the number one community that when I would try to get in there and try to educate them about what was going on, they were the number one community that would tell me it will never pass. Over and over again, it will never pass. I mean, it's just head in the sand, and not all of them, because some of them have really stepped up and are really starting to put the work in to make sure that we're that they're working on getting their community more engaged. But for the most part, like a lot of them just seem kind of like oblivious to the fact that this radical legislation is happening right here in Colorado.
Wow, absolutely crazy stuff. I really appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight. Any other final words, final thoughts? How can people support all the great work you do?
I think that my only, my final words would just kind of be that I know it's hard. I think watching the gun control this year has been really, really difficult. It has been a very hard year. I really, really appreciate and my just huge thank you to the people who have done so much work this year. This was a valiant, valiant fight. And I want people to know that. I want people to understand that there has been a lot of personalities down at the Capitol fighting this year for gun rights, and they have all done a really, really good job. And I want to make sure that people know that because they deserve credit. And a lot of them are just citizens. I have never seen citizen activism quite like I have this year, probably not since 2013. And that's been really, really good. So I do want to just give a big thank you to those people. And I know sometimes it can seem defeating. I have a saying that I like to tell people, though, when it comes to the work that we do in using our voices. I like to say it is never a waste of time to waste the time of lawmakers by telling them how bad their ideas are. So nobody has wasted their time. These lawmakers need to hear from us always, no matter if we're the last people in that room, telling them how bad their ideas are, period.
Leslie, I
Awesome.
think that's a great point. One of the things I like to tell people is if you've got a series of bad bills in a committee and you're going to go down there, sign up for all of them because just put the screws to them every single time, every single opportunity you can.
Just that, you know what? The more time we take up, the more we slow things down. So, yeah.
100%. Well, Lesley, I really look forward to talking to you further in the future. I'd love to collaborate on any election related stuff and come up with some strategies and really try and get people mobilized and energized. So I'd love to have that conversation with you in the future, but really appreciate you taking the time tonight. Thank you for everything you do. Really encourage people to check out Rally for Our Rights and We the Second, and make sure to follow you everywhere that they can on Facebook, X, everywhere, and keep up the great work. So thank you so much, Lesley. Really appreciate you taking the time tonight.
Thank you guys and happy Easter.
You too.
Happy Easter. All right. Take care. Awesome. So we got a few more bills to cover there, Michael, in terms of what we got going on this week here. But I get just to wrap up that conversation. Any other thoughts on what Lesley was talking about?
I thought it was a fantastic interview. I mean, Leslie's incredibly knowledgeable on gun rights and in this legislation that they're trying to push through. I thought it showed through very well. I'm ex and she's absolutely right. It's time for us to get on board with the 2026 campaign cycle right now, and it is going to be a fight in 2026. But remember, I mean, just because Trump is quote unquote in that position right now, and there is a problem, and there is a problem in Colorado with a lot of people that do not like Trump. That doesn't mean that you can't really put the focus and the attention on what's going on locally. I mean, as Lesley was saying, even if they were to continue to vote blue for our federal elections, why can't they vote red or for another individual, or like a third party or somebody like that, at the state level? There's a lot of options. There's a lot of opportunity we have to really show people um, that the Democrats are absolutely destroying Colorado, destroying our liberty, and destroying our gun rights.
100%. And I really like the idea. Talk to your neighbor, talk to people at your church, talk to people at your work, as much as you can, right? But talk to people that you meet and really get this information out there, folks. It's one individual at a time, one person at a time. Start building a list, start holding neighborhood meetings. Maybe you're at garage sales this summer. Maybe your kids have a little league or something like that. Like talk to other people, find the others, get involved, get organized. And we can do this. We really can do it. So really excited, but we got a few more bills to cover. Michael, you ready for it?
Let's go.
All right, perfect. So there was one bill that is on the calendar this week. Somehow the slide disappeared or wherever, but this is something I did want to bring up to people. Senate Bill 297 is being heard this week in committee as well. Implementation of Colorado Natural Medicine Initiative. So, of course, the whole natural medicine scheme was approved by voters years ago, but we really haven't seen too much of the rollout yet. We've seen some, don't get me wrong. But I just wanted people to become really aware of this. This is something that I know Ashley Troxel was really pointing out there on X. But there's a lot there. So I know people are really interested, really concerned about all of this. So pay attention to this, folks. If that's your wheelhouse, if you want to get into natural medicine on the ground floor, then definitely check this out. It will be pretty interesting to see how they develop all these new policing powers, like we saw with everything else. All these new statutory provisions regarding natural medicine businesses and everything they want to do. So I won't go into all the details here, but wanted to make sure people were aware of it and that this bill is being heard on Wednesday. So if this is something you're interested in, listen to that committee hearing, maybe even show up, read the bill. But that's in the Health and Human Services Committee upon adjournment of the Senate and the old Supreme Court. So check that out, Senate Bill 297. So perfect. Any thoughts on that one, Michael?
I don't really have too many thoughts on that one. I just hope people take the time to read it and educate themselves on what the bill is.
Definitely, definitely. So, folks, let's talk about some of the important bills we've been tracking all legislative session here. So we're on the home stretch, so stick around. We got a little bit more to cover tonight. So maybe these are some of the bigger bills you heard about months ago, weeks ago. We're going to give you an update. Did they die? What did the governor sign so far? And where is the status of some of the bills we've been talking about all these 15 weeks so far? So crazy stuff. So let's jump in here. Michael, you want to switch off here?
Let's do it.
Perfect. So Senate Bill 20, this is where the Attorney General is going to go after landlords. It's going to be heard on the House floor tomorrow. It's supposed to be. They've been pushing bills off the House floor like crazy because they're overloading the calendar. They don't have time to get them through, so they keep getting pushed and pushed back. So we'll see if this actually gets heard tomorrow. Bad bill. House Bill 1006. This is the one where a Republican heartsick is helping the teachers unions out by turning school property into affordable housing for the teachers unions there. So the House considered the Senate amendments, and the House did not agree with them. They did not concur. So they didn't like what the Senate changed to the bill, which is really interesting. And they're going to have a conference committee where they're going to hash out all their differences there. So interesting stuff. We haven't seen that happen a lot this year, at least that I'm aware of. So I wanted to make sure people were aware of that.
Wouldn't it be amazing if the bill just died right there in that conference committee?
That'd be awesome.
House Bill 251127, register and drive surplus military vehicles. Love to see this one pass appropriation. It's already passed two committees. This is a good bill by Senator Pelton and Rep. Barone. House Bill 1287, terrible bill. Social media tools for minor users and parents, going to restrict what you're able to do on social media as well as track you. Uh, House Committee, it's currently in House Community and Health and Human Services, and then it was referred to, it was
Yep.
referred as amended to appropriations. Excuse me.
Yep. So it's in appropriations, but not scheduled in the calendar yet. So we'll keep an eye on that. Appropriations is meeting this week, so we'll see if it wasn't added this morning. The Bitcoin vending machine one is going to be heard on the House floor tomorrow, just if people are interested. The modify statewide ballot measure processes. So this is the one where they're going to make it more difficult, create new penalties for people to get stuff on the ballot, attacking a citizen right to petition. Really bad bill. It's supposed to be heard in the House floor tomorrow. So if you tell your state reps, people, 1327, bad bill.
Senate Bill 131, reducing the cost of housing. This was if I remember correctly, this was supposed to be a good bill by Rep. Lundeen, introduced to the Senate and assigned to Senate State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee. House Bill 1239, this is CAUTA. Unfortunately, this was passed in the House, introduced to the Senate, and assigned for appropriation, assigned to the judiciary, and then now passed and will be heard, on Tuesday the 22nd, appropriations at 8 a.m.
Yep. Bad stuff there, folks. So moving on here, this is the one that Lesley brought up. So as she pointed out, did pass the House this last week. 1314, really bad bill to pay attention to. Has not gotten assigned to the Senate committee yet, so we'll keep an eye out for that. I'm sure they got to find that Senate sponsor, like Lesley was saying, but I added that to the list. Make sure we're tracking it. House Bill 1209, marijuana regulation streamline. I'm going to be here Tuesday in the Appropriations Committee there.
Senate Bill 5, unfortunately, has is passed committee, and it will be it is planned to be heard tomorrow on the House floor. Senate Bill 72, regulation of kratom, is currently sitting in appropriations, and thankfully there is no date as of this moment.
Yeah, 3 months. They've been delaying that one out, so hopefully it dies. Senate Bill 201. This is the bill to prevent underage people from using getting on sexual websites. But I wanted to point this one out here. So the Senate second reading, they've laid it over. The bill sponsors laid over the bill to May 8th. And if you remember what I said earlier, May 7th is the last day of the legislative session. So this is a way to kill the bill from the floor, where the bill sponsors came out and said, hey, this bill, it's not a finished product. It's not where we want it to be. So let's go ahead and lay it over to end of the session. So that bill is delayed and is dead this year. So we'll add that to the dead list, but wanted to point that out. We haven't seen that happen yet this year, at least that I'm aware of. And then 1312, of course, the bill where they want to take away your kid if you misgender them in a custody dispute, has not been signed to a Senate committee yet as of this afternoon. So we'll keep an eye on that one as well.
Let's hope that one suffers the same fate as some of these other bills, 1312, and we do not see that one's such a disaster. We're hoping that this one doesn't get picked up by the Senate. House Joint Resolution 1023. This is the Tabor lawsuit. It's planned to be heard on the House floor tomorrow. Let's hope this one gets killed. We're not hopeful that it will, but we are really hopeful that the party of democracy, as they love to call themselves, gets their head on straight and absolutely tanks this resolution. So it dies. House Bill 1291. This one is currently introduced to the Senate and assigned to the Business, Labor, and Technology Committee. Let's hope that we do not see a date on this one as well.
Yeah, really disappointed on 1291. A lot of Republicans actually voted for it on third reading, getting it out of the House. This is massive regulation on rideshare companies in the name of public safety, of course. So really disappointing there. Senate Bill 276, the Protect Civil Rights of Immigration Status. This is the bill to protect illegal immigrants here in Colorado. Is passed out of Senate committee. Will be heard on the Senate floor tomorrow, so keep an eye on that one, folks. Senate Bill 276. House Bill 1321. This is the $4 million slush fund for Jared Polis and the future governor to fight back against Donald Trump cutting funding to Colorado. I did a video on it. Check that out if you haven't yet on the Free State Colorado YouTube channel, being heard Tuesday in appropriations. So there you go.
House Bill 1303, funding for motor vehicle collision prevention. That will be heard on the House floor tomorrow. And then House Bill 1281. We talked about this one early. If you guys can support this one, that would be fantastic. But this is not the highest priority, but we'd still love to see this one. This will be good for farmers as well as Colorado.
House Senate Bill 173 to take money out of the Tabor calculations, of course, a de facto way to raise our taxes, give us less Tabor refunds. Monday, being heard on the House floor, supposedly we'll see. And I'm just skeptical because they're not going to get through all these bills on the House floor. House Bill 1315. So we talked about this before. It's the first time adding it to the list, but vacancy elections in Colorado are a serious problem. There's definitely bipartisan support for reforming the vacancy committee process. If you guys remember 2 weeks ago, they heard like 6 bills in the same committee, all about vacancy committees. There was 2 bills that made it out. This was one of them, which we were not surprised, of course, because it's a bipartisan bill. You got Democrats on it. So 1315 is looking like it's going to make it. We'll see those discussions on the House floor potentially tomorrow.
House Bill 1319, county commissioner vacancies. This is another one of those bills Brandon was talking about, and we're planning on hearing this one heard tomorrow as well. And you can see another one with Puglisi and Perkmeyer. And in my opinion, these were the worst 2 of those bills. And of course, they're the ones that made it through.
Definitely. So now we're moving on to folks. So that list has gotten a lot shorter because a lot of these bills have moved on to either being passed or killed that we've been tracking all year. So House Bill 1175, the smart meter opt-in program, is passed onto the governor. He hadn't signed it yet. Senate Bill 183, so they can fund up taxpayer abortions. There, passed the governor, sitting on the governor's desk.
House Bill 1247, county lodging tax expansion. This is not going to be a good bill for Coloradans, particularly local business owners. Passed on to the governor. And then House Bill 1113. This is the slow creep into stripping your ability to own turf on your property. Passed on to the governor as well.
1238, the gun show requirement. They want to shut down gun shows. Jared Polis did sign that into law on Friday. The anti-gun show bill, Jared Polis signed into law. Bad news there, folks. Jared Polis also signed a new requirement that all self-cultivated meat, lab-grown meat, has to have a label on it. So that was also signed into law last week. House Bill 1203.
House Bill 1093, limitations on anti-local growth land use policies, was signed by the governor. Terrible bill. As well as Senate Bill 86 was passed to the governor. Protections of users of social media. I'm hoping that this one could possibly get vetoed, just like he vetoed. Was it 77 that he vetoed recently?
Yep.
So let's hope that one dies, just like Senate Bill 77.
Yeah, definitely hope 86 vetoes. The governor says he was going to veto it when it was in its committee hearing, so love to see it. Senate Bill 33 to prohibit new liquor license drugstores, signed by the governor. He signed it with skepticism, he said, but he still signed it into law. So limiting new liquor licenses, a prohibitionist measure there. Senate Bill 77, he did veto, as we talked about. Really thankful that Jared Polis did veto that bill. A horrible bill to weaken our Colorado Open Records Act, our core requests, and thankfully, governor did veto that.
House Bill 1010, prohibiting price gouging in the sales of necessity. Terrible, terrible bill that's going to harm Coloradans, particularly when we run into specific emergencies. Passed on to the governor. House Bill 1040, add nuclear energy as a clean resource, was signed by the governor, which is, in terms of how horrible Governor Polis has been, it's kind of shocking that he signed a good one.
Yeah, something to celebrate there with 1040 at least. Senate Bill 3, of course, signed by the governor, the worst gun ban in Colorado history. And then he also signed this last Friday, 1133, the requirements for sale of firearms ammunition, basically making it illegal for people under 21 to buy ammunition. So, yeah, total tyrant, authoritarian, Polis.
House Bill 1005, tax incentives for film festivals. This is the Sunset uh, Film Festival bill that they signed to give Hollywood elites the free tax money, signed by the governor.
$34 million of your tax money going to Boulder for the Sundance Film Festival. Absolutely ridiculous. Now we're on
Disgusting.
to the discussing it for sure. The killed bill. So the peace officer questions during traffic stop. Actually like that bill. The Democrats killed it. 1243. Gray bill from Representative Bottoms to prevent trafficking of minors to Colorado for abortion or transgender care. 1144, of course, was killed.
House Bill 1237, soft closing of alcohol beverage establishments. That was going to expand alcohol beverage establishments' ability to stay open longer if they would if they prefer. That was killed. Senate Bill 156, reducing costs of state regulation. Of course, something like that is going to get killed in today's Colorado legislature.
1255, the healthcare provider right to exercise conscience, where doctors could potentially say, we're not going to give you this horrible surgery, young kid, or abortions or whatever, or maybe even COVID related stuff. But Representative Lux Bill's, of course, killed. Representative Bottoms to require parental consent for minors to be treated for medical services. 1251 killed.
House Bill 1190, expanding Colorado College Cottage Foods Act, excuse me, also known as the Tamale Act, that was killed. This was Ryan Gonzalez's bill. House Bill 1232, liability when means of self-defense prohibited. This was killed as well, unfortunately. A good bill by Stephanie Luck.
1089, county mail ballot signature verification requirements to strengthen up our elections. Dead. 1141, Bradley's bill to throw retail criminals in jail. People committing retail and gift card crime. Of course, the Democrats don't want to do that.
Senate Bill 56, reduce premium cigar excise tax. This is the Stompin' Tom Sullivan special. He loves his cigars. Not a terrible bill on itself, but horrible guy. That was killed. House Bill 1055, repeal firearm dealer requirements, state permits. This bill was also killed. Good bill by freshman rep Max Brooks.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get him on a future show. The egg bill, 1074, Ryan Gonzalez's attempt to repeal the terrible cage-free egg law in Colorado, of course, was killed. And then Ryan Gonzalez's bill to repeal the 10-cent fee or tax in reality on paper bags at grocery stores, of course, killed by the Democrats.
1134. This was a bill by Rep Bottoms and insect production of human consumption. He was trying to ban all insect foods that were all foods that were going to be produced by basically taking insects and creating food out of them. That was killed. House Bill 1143, open source software and voting systems, was also killed. This was another good bill, in my opinion, by Rep. Max Brooks.
Repeal retail delivery fees from Rep. Wu, great bill. 1144, of course, killed. This was the signature bill from the Republicans this year to try and require some enforcement of federal immigration law. Senate Bill 47, of course, killed. So, folks, this is so important because this is the record. These legislators down there at the Capitol have a record of supporting bad legislation and killing good stuff. So we got to hold them accountable. And this is a database for you people out there. This is a database for the Colorado voters. So get whatever information you need. Remember what happened this year, and let's use it in 2026.
House Bill 1106, remove precipitation collection limitations. Good bill by Rep. Sukla, killed. And then Senate Bill 57, non-citizen voter registration cancellation. Fantastic bill by Senator Baisling, Rep. Richardson. That oddly was killed, and apparently the problem doesn't exist, but they killed the bill anyway. Seems like a little bit of gaslighting by the Democrats, in my opinion.
100%. Government transparency laws. This was signature legislation here that the Independence Institute is really pushing to repeal the bad open meetings law that reversed some of the open meetings laws here in Colorado last year and increase our transparency of the government. Of course, killed. I testified on that one. Senate Bill 76, the anti-marijuana bill, killed in committee as well, thankfully.
Senate Bill 139, grocery and utility reduction measures. This is what we were nicknaming the Afrera bill by Senator Baisley. That was killed. And then another fantastic bill, House Bill 1073, protection against child rape, which was going to make sure that people serve jail time for raping children. Some reason this got killed as well. I cannot imagine how anyone could possibly vote against a bill like that, but we had enough people to kill the bill. Shocking, but that's the state of the Colorado legislature.
Insane. Criminal asset forfeiture to reform that process, of course, killed. Some Republicans even voting against it. Bad news there. House Bill 1100. This was Representative Luck's attempt to reform our vacancy election process that was killed 2 weeks ago.
House Bill 1262, regulate private security officers and agencies. Bill by Mabry and Weissman, which was killed. That was going to attack our private security services.
Yep, I'm sure they'll bring this bill next week, but that was what they had, and it died. So that's what we got, folks. Awesome. I hope everybody had a great Easter. We had a great time. Apologize we didn't get the second guest on, but I'm sure we'll get him at a future time. But really appreciate everybody joining us. These live streams have been phenomenal. We got probably 2, 3 left, folks. So right now it's the April 20th, as everybody knows. The 7th, May 7th, is when they're supposed to adjourn for the year. So we have the 27th and the 4th. So, folks, 2 more weeks of live streams going over what's happening at the legislature. And of course, we'll see, hopefully, do a nice recap at the end of the year with some fun plans there that Michael and I have been talking about. So, really appreciate everybody. Let's keep fighting. Keep fighting. Don't give up. There's so many good positives, and let's keep a record of all the bad votes, bad bills, and a record of the good stuff too. We got to get this information out there. Such important stuff that the voters don't necessarily know about, and that's our job here. Is our responsibility as Liberty leaders in Colorado to get this information out to the public, and let's see what we can do with it. So, what are your final thoughts there, Michael?
Absolutely. We are in the home stretch. This is when and as I've been saying, the tricks get nastier and nastier as the end of the session approaches. There's always a bill or two that pops up or a bill that you think is dead. For example, we had two really terrible property tax bills that popped up the final week of the legislative session. We've also seen nasty bills that we thought were dead reemerge at the 11th hour and suddenly get passed. For example, Senate Bill 84 last year. That was a Lorena Garcia special that suddenly reemerged. You never know what's going to happen, and we're all going to fight. We're all going to win, but I just want to warn people, watch out for bad actors. Even if it seems like they very well could be a huge win for Colorado, they very well might be the thing that tanks the entire thing for all of us and gives the gives the progressives these commie rat scum that we all cannot stand the final edge over all of us and takes everybody down. So watch out for bad faith actors out there.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Forest Mommy, too. The comment there in the chat, night, night. Forest Mommy says she should be at the Capitol tomorrow for Ken's bill. If she can swing it, hope to see some peeps. Awesome. Thank you, Forest Mommy, for being a leader out there. Thank you for everybody. Thank you, Michael. It was a great time. Look forward to talking again soon. We'll see you next week, folks. Home stretch, like Michael said. And I was at DeGraff, or somebody was saying this last week, that there's basically a guarantee there's going to be a special session. So they're going to call another session in the summer or in the fall. We'll see. Absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, folks, eternal vigilance, keep fighting, get involved, get this information out there to people, and let's keep going. So awesome. Take care, everybody. Happy Easter.
See you guys.